So welcome everyone, and just very briefly, thank you for being here. And we are farming 185 acres here. They are preserved acres. We have over 100 bovines on the property. We are milking 43 cows, making cheese daily. And some of the cheeses are here for you to enjoy. And we're also baking breads in a single chamber wood-fired oven from locally grown and milled grains. So when I met Peter in the spring at our county Democratic convention, which was my very first, and I heard him speak, I was so glad that he won the nomination for being the congressional challenger. I am as frustrated as I think a lot of us are, and wanting to put our agenda forward. And so I was very pleased that Peter very quickly accepted an invitation to visit Bobolink. And in showing him around, I could see that he really understood on a very deep level what we do here. And I needed to do more, so here we are. So thank you for being who you are. So I think that I would like you to just begin by telling us about yourself, please.
Sure. I see somebody.
Either brief.
Right? So it is a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank each and every single one of you for coming out. Despite the weather, this is New Jersey. We are strong. We're the Fighting 7th District. So give yourself a round of applause for being here. I especially want to thank our hosts, Nina and John, for accommodating us and hosting us today. The work that they do. Yeah. The work that they do is beyond just saying unique. What they're doing here really would be an example to many farms and many communities, not just throughout our nation, but throughout our world. You know, the cows here, 100% grass-fed. The way the work is done is beyond just, you can't even call it work, it's a mission that you're really serving to our community, to our nation, and our world. And I hope they don't steal my glory while you're saying it, so try and focus right here.
Sometimes when they get excited, they just start running. It's very fun to watch.
They're good now. So.
Well, he got excited and he's running also.
Yeah.
We're running together.
Right.
So I want to start off with a quick story. My parents, they came from India in 1986. And when they arrived, you know, they were the children of farmers who had very little. But they emphasized education and doing what is best for the community, for the family. And they arrived in the United States with just $20 in their pockets, hearts full of hope, and a 6-month-old in their arms, me. They were able to establish a small business. The first business was a TV and VCR repair shop. You don't have those anymore. And chances are, if you had a VCR or a TV repaired, and you lived in Union, New Jersey, I did a little bit of the soldering, so I apologize in advance. Then they had a video store, a VHS cassette store. You don't hear about those anymore either. And then shortly, you know, a couple of years after my sister was born, my family realized we got to start working harder. We got to make some more money. What we started doing is we started a security company, alarm systems and cameras. My parents purchased a beautiful home in the township of Union, put their children, and I got my master's in social work from Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yay.
I consider that an applause to WashU in St. Louis. I'll let them know. I decided to do social work based on my activism as a young person, as a student. I saw the international crises and humanitarian challenges, human rights issues overseas, and I felt that based on the political, economic environment that we had in this country, things were pretty well. So my focus was on the acute attentions of what was going on overseas. One issue that I first worked on was the crisis in Darfur, where the Janjaweed were murdering people in the Darfur region. I got together, we put together a Darfur Day during UN Week, and we were able to raise hundreds of dollars, and we sent it over to UNICEF asking for them to set up a particular program to address the issue in Darfur. A month later, they set up a specific program to address the issue in Darfur. And that was one of the proudest, most awesome moments in my life. I also learned about the issue of human trafficking, specifically sex trafficking of young children and women. And I worked at an organization called the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women International, working on policy, especially for people overseas. After I started social work school, I continued the efforts, and I did a placement as an MSW student at the Young Women's Christian Association, the WYCA. The YWCA. And over there, I saw what many of the challenges we were facing in this country alone. Many of the women who face domestic violence issues, many of the women who just something happened, medical issues or issues going on with family, and they ended up in our shelters. I returned back home the day after graduation. We drove back from St. Louis because I knew I wanted to serve here. This was home for me. And I started a job at the Elizabeth Coalition to House the Homeless as a community organizer. And if there's something to see, you see it there. I served the families who were working 2-3 jobs, the families who had to take pay cuts to keep their jobs due to the greed, recklessness, and illegal behaviors of a handful of executives in New York City. And they ended up homeless. I served our veterans who served our nation, who are jobless, homeless, and suffering from PTSD. I've served our senior citizens who literally had to choose between food and medication. Although many of us may not be in these dire conditions, we see the challenges we are facing here in the 21st century in our nation. We pay our taxes, but often we do not see a return on our investment, do we? Our crumbling bridges, our roads, just going down 22 or 78. Public transportation is a major issue now, and it's leading many young people to leave this beautiful community here in Hunterdon County. Our infrastructure. We had a slight internet problem just before this, right, Nina? But we're up and going now. So we need investment in infrastructure here. And leading into that, going into environment. Why in the world do we need another natural gas pipeline in the 21st century? We have some of the leading solar panel integrators throughout the nation, right here in New Jersey, one of them being right here in Flemington. That's the investment we need to bring into our communities. Yes. Go communities. But we can't address this issue. We can't address the issue of healthcare. We can't address the issue of student loan debt. We can't address when it comes to socioeconomic, racial issues if we do not get to the crux of the issue, and that is our broken campaign finance system. We are a campaign that's committed to overturning Citizens United and and to get rid of corruption, period. This needs to stop. For far too long, we've had the special interests be put above the public's interests, and it's about time we return the public back to public service, and that is what we intend to do here. Thank you.
So now you know why I invited him to my home. Right on in every single point. And so let's just delve a little deeper. First of all, one of the first questions I had, and it may seem small, but I think it tells a very wonderful story, is Jacob is not what I think of as an Indian last name. And can you please tell me how you came to have that last name?
Yes, neither is Peter, so I'll get to both those names. So,
True enough,
yeah.
True enough.
So, just to go do a little history here, Christianity came to India, and it's believed the disciple Thomas, the doubting one, brought Christianity in around 52 AD to India. He converted a king, converted a community, and in fact, my family, our belief in Christianity goes back to even way back then, to roughly 2,000 years. So Christianity has been in South India for very much a long time, and later on, various other communities, the Portuguese, the Syrians, they've all developed relationships with India, and Christianity grew. It was really until the British came that they invested in education, particularly in South India. A lot of schools were built by the British, and a lot of Christians, they took on very English names. You know, the name for Peter and Jacob in my language is Patros Jacob. Sounds similar to many other languages if you speak Hebrew or you know Hebrew. So we adopted the more English Western names. And I guarantee you, if you go to Kerala, if you just walk down my block, you find Joseph, John's. Every name you can mention in the Bible is there. Mine is perhaps Bartholomew, but every other name is there. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. In your experience as a social worker, what particular challenges did you meet that make you equipped, as I know you are, to be an effective congressional representative for your constituents?
As a social worker, I represent the communities, and the communities that are most in need, and the people who are most in need. To be honest, how many more lawyers and big businessmen do we really need in Washington, right? We need people who understand the community, people who see the struggle of the 21st century, and social work has trained me with 21st century solutions and methods, and that's what I want to bring to the U.S. House of Representatives.
So, what is your stance on the proposed Penn-East Pipeline? And what changes can you propose that will put an end to this particular struggle once and for all?
Unequivocally, we need to ban fracking, period. Let's be honest here, the Penn-East Pipeline is not going to bring jobs into New Jersey. It's going to mess up our lands, our preserved beautiful lands. It's going to mess up the groundwater, our drinking water. There's a high concentration of arsenic in the rock, in the ground here. That's a major concern. What we need to do is invest in a new Green Deal for this nation. We could do it. We're behind when it comes to environmentally sustainable solutions. There's no need to use natural gas when we have solar, wind, offshore, and we could utilize all this in the Garden State. That's what we need to do. It's very simple. You know, I support legislation that, you know, bans fracking, ensures that if there is any fracking in any other communities, that we know what chemical compounds are used in the process of fracking. But it's about time we enter the 21st century, that the Garden State live up to its name, we turn it green, and we be examples to other states and the world as a whole.
So, of course, I have a personal agenda with regards to the environment and food production. And perhaps the biggest issues right now are protecting water and bees. I think we can all agree that we're in an emergency. You know, both sides of the aisle are going to discuss whether GMOs and this breed of grass and that breed of corn, but I think that water and bees are in an emergency. So, how could Congress protect our nation's agriculture and environment in addressing these issues?
We need to invest in our communities. Factory farming is a major issue. Yes, there's a need. More people need to eat. But we need to ensure that farms like this are protected and invested, and the models you guys create are replicated throughout our nation. Farming, you know, this is the breadbasket for America. Farming, in and of itself. You can't have the rest of life if you don't have good quality food. And through factory farming, we've sacrificed so much. And it is a reflection of what we are doing as Homo sapiens on this planet to other living beings. You know, the fact that our pollution, what we've been doing, we depend on the bees at the end of the day. Without them, we would not have the beauty that we see around us today. I think the major thing is there is a level of political corruption by big agriculture, and they're drowning out the voices of the small-time farmers. We need those voices represented in our state houses, in our Congress, and I want to ensure that I will be that gateway to ensure that those voices are heard. We're not taking any special interest money here. Well, who we're listening to and who we respond to are the people of the community like this, especially Hunterdon County, Somerset County. Farming is definitely a backbone of this community. We need to bring it back. We need to bring the proper investment into the community so you guys have the tools and the incentives to do that.
Of course, I mean, special interest and lobbyists really have a stranglehold on our whole government process at this time. How do you hope to change this age-old status quo?
One thing I mentioned first and foremost, the moral issue of the decade. If climate change is the issue of our generation, which all of us will have to combat, the moral issue in this nation is Citizens United. The fact that corporations have been made people and money has been made speech. I support a constitutional amendment along with 26 other people in the House of Representatives. There's the We the People Amendment, which basically says that we need a constitutional amendment that says that natural persons are human beings and money is not speech. That is where we begin. We have to begin that fight, and I will do it the first day I'm in Congress. Yes. Thank you. In addition, I am supporting what's called the American Anti-Corruption Act put forward by an organization called Represent.us. Now, Represent.us put together this, and in fact, for the past several years, several municipalities, people like us, have stood up and said no to corruption in their own backyards. And 4 of them right here in the Garden State have already taken a stance with regards to corruption, and several other municipalities and cities throughout the country have. What it basically addresses is lobbying. We need clear definitions of lobbying. We need to close the revolving door. That means anybody who's in politics should not be an internship to go and work for banks or the fossil fuel industry. We need to close that revolving door where politicians go and work for special. Yes, exactly. There's that too. So we need to put a limit on that for congresspersons and staffers. We also need to address the fact that special interests funnel money, a tsunami and flood of money into the pockets of politicians, drowning out our voices. No pun intended on this rainy day. You should not be able to take money from the interests that you regulate. That is a conflict of interest, period, and that needs to stop. That's a big one. And we finally need a public financing of our election system, and we need to do that now. We need to ensure that people have access. Everybody has a right to vote in this country and have the access and the ability to support candidates who they believe would best represent them through tax credits and such. So that's some of the things that we want to make sure that we could get passed. And I have pledged, and I continue to pledge, that I will be the first person in the House to put forward the American Anti-Corruption Act on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives.
We've got to get you in there. So, as many of us know and have experienced, we have a heroin epidemic in our communities across the nation. It's tragic. It is going across all socioeconomic divides. How are we going to fix this? What solutions do you want to propose?
I need to take a drink of water before I answer that question.
Yeah.
That issue is very dear to me. As a social worker, it's something I saw firsthand. Working on the streets of Union County, I can't tell you the number of clients who have come up to my door who are agitated, who are upset, who are angry, who are frustrated. And I asked them, what's going on for you? And after they cursed me out, the next day they would come back and apologize. Hey, Peter, I'm sorry. I was like, what was going on, bro? And they would be like, I didn't get my hit for the day. And I was curious. Me, a middle-class person, thinking it's just sunshine out my doors. I asked him, how much does it cost? He said $5 for a small pack. That's less than a pack of cigarettes. $5 for heroin, right? In several towns throughout the state of New Jersey, the epidemic is 25 times higher than the national rate. It is a major issue. Plain and simple, we cannot treat this as a criminal issue any longer. We have to treat it as a healthcare issue, period. We need to bring the proper investment to train the proper people. We need to invest in our hospitals and local clinics. We need to ensure that police officers and EMT specialists have the right type of, the right items to treat someone immediately once they come on a scene of an overdose. We need to ensure that families have the right resources and knowledge to deal with this issue. It's not going to go away on its own. It requires education. It requires investment in healthcare. It requires a socio-cultural evolution in this nation where we do not treat people as if they're criminals, as if they're dogs, and we just lock them up to come back out on the streets and deal with the same people, places, and things. We need treatment. We need to give them opportunities so they do not relapse and they could live productive, good lives.
And I think not unrelated to this issue is the results, the myriad results of the 20th century's dismantling of our manufacturing industry in this country. I'd like you to just tell us how you see that problem has impacted our society overall, and how can we set forth to repair the damage?
The first thing we could do is oppose the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We need to oppose the TPP, period. We have shipped plenty of jobs overseas. We've had terrible trade deals, NAFTA, CAFTA, and some people refer to the TPP as SHAFTA. What I want to do is bring investment. We need to invest again. We could do that. We could do these things. It's just that the greed that exists for many companies, they have no disincentive, so they send these jobs overseas. In fact, there is a need for skilled manufacturing labor in this country. They've shipped a lot of jobs to other countries like Mexico, so obviously they could pay people less wages, but those people are being trained. Corporations in this country need to see it not as an expense to train their workers. They need to see it as an investment, as we've seen in this nation, especially during the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. We need to see it as an investment in our communities. And we want to ensure that there are programs out there that we could create to ensure that those people could have jobs. We have an overabundance of people who are graduating from college without many opportunities. So we need to ensure that those people, those young people, have the ability to have productive work lives after they graduate from college. And the best way we could do this is to create those schools as well as those programs to ensure that people have skill sets in manufacturing, especially when it comes to the Green New Deal that we're talking about. The Green Revolution, we're going to need more people to innovate. We see what Tesla has done, and that's open source information. You could go home right now and build your own Tesla if you are inclined and have the resources. But we need to ensure every single young person has the skill sets, knowledge, and the ability to do that. And that's the investment we're going to bring right here in the 7th District. Hold me to it.
I will. I sure will. And with that, on the topic of college tuition, where would the money come from to give our promising students their free tuition, their low tuition, and how would it be decided as to who receives those funds, and how would our nation benefit from such a program?
As many of you know, I support tuition-free public colleges and universities. And as many of you may know already, this is nothing new. This concept wasn't new. The University of California, the city universities of New York, and several other colleges and universities throughout this country. College was tuition free. You did not have to drop a penny to really attend college. In fact, my father, he went to school in India. You could get up to your master's without dropping a dime. All you pay is your entrance fee and you pay for books. And if you couldn't afford that, the government would take care of it. The government has to see that this is an investment in our future. When they get jobs, they go and they invest in our communities. And that money comes back into our local economy. The way we pay for it is, and what I support, is a financial transaction fee that could be levied on Wall Street on the trade, the trade of stocks. Many other countries have started slowly implementing this, and this could generate billions and billions of dollars per year that we could take care of this. And what we're talking about is specifically the Inclusive Prosperity Act that Representative Keith Ellison from Minnesota has put forward, which has over 20 co-sponsors in the House, which talks about putting a 0.5% tax on stock trades. That's 50 cents for every $100. And if you're a household making a total of $75,000, you would be exempt. We could raise billions of dollars to do this, to not just cover education, but also invest in our infrastructure. And that is something I plan to co-sponsor once we get to Washington.
So, speaking of Wall Street, let's talk about Dodd-Frank, which your incumbent opposes. How is this bill important to the financial stability of our nation, and how does it benefit the everyman? Why is it important that this type of legislation come from Washington, and what might happen if it were stricken down altogether?
The reason we have rules and laws for Wall Street is not for the saints and the good doers. Right? It's for the sinners and the bad doers. What FDR put in place after 1929, the great crash that led to the Great Depression of 1929, he ushered in an era of financial regulations. The FDIC, the Federal Depository Insurance Corporation, that guaranteed the people's money, even if the banks fell. Glass-Steagall, which is a major thing, separated commercial banking from investment banking, and the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, to be the overseers of that. And there's a revolving door there, but we could get to that later. Dodd-Frank ensured that, at the very minimum, there's oversight, that the banks could not fool around with people's money, put it into these package things together, and sell them off to other banks, and at the end of the day, crash our economy. And as a part of that, one of the most amazing programs and ideas that came out of that was initiated by Senator Elizabeth Warren, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which ensured all these things. So that is what we want to keep in place. We have to do more, though. We have to break up the big banks. If they're too big to exist, if they're too big to fail, they are too big to exist. There we go. We need to invest in community banking so that many young people who have that visionary thinking, this is the country that innovated in many ways. We were leaders. We put a man on the moon. We need to ensure that we could have opportunities for young people. And the way we do that is allowing community banks to have the resources to support people who are coming out with good ideas. The banks do not want to take a risk at this time on entrepreneurs. I always say my parents, they were the last generation to really come to this country with the opportunity to do that. We need to ensure that loans are accessible by people who have good ideas, even if it's just having an awesome idea with regards to cupcakes in the community. Magnolia Bakery started somewhere. So we could ensure that loans are accessible. We need to ensure that banks are willing to support local communities once again.
So I've barely mentioned the opposition because I wanted to give you a chance to state all the positives. And in keeping a positive approach, how do how do you differ from the incumbent?
Oh boy, where do I begin here? First and foremost, I was not the one to be the first of New Jersey's congressional delegation to enthusiastically support Donald Trump for president. We'll begin there. And I will not be voting for Donald Trump come November 8th. As many of you know, especially from Hunterdon County or parts of Somerset County, where Congressman Leonard Lance has been a state senator and assemblyman, he was a moderate guy. He cared about the community. In fact, he got kicked out of his chairmanship for opposing the governor at the time. He considered himself a Dwight Eisenhower Republican who was pro-environment, pro-choice, pro the people of this district. Now, he toes the party line as it becomes more partisan and extreme. You see, while Leonard Lance does not allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices with the pharmaceutical industry, I was out on the streets of Union County helping those senior citizens choose between food and medication. While Leonard Lance took $1,000 a couple of years back from the NRA to buy his silence, I'm fighting for common sense gun laws to be passed in this nation. And while Leonard Lance is equivocal, hypocritical, and obfuscated when it comes to the Penn-East Pipeline, I'm standing beside the community. We need to stop the pipeline and we need to ban fracking again, period. I'm not bought out by the special interests. Nobody has their hands in my pocket. At the end of the day, when we win here, for the next 2 years, what we're going to be doing is coming together like this. And I'm going to ask you, and I want you to ask me too, how we could work together to build our democracy. How we could have a government that is truly of, by, and for the people again. That is what I'm running for. That is what I'm standing up to. And that is where I stand, period. There we go. And in fact, just to touch on this point, pharma, and just to make it clear with regards to the Penn-East Pipeline, because it's not, it's dear to everybody here, and us city folk out in Union County, although we may not feel the direct impact, we know what it does to the community, our nation in general. There's several companies invested into the pipeline, AGL, Spectra being them. Leonard Lance took several thousands and thousands of dollars from this company, and several other organizations and associations that support fuel using natural gas and oil into the 21st century, so that Congress does not make any moves to invest in solar and green energies. That in and of itself should tell you, and that's within this cycle. It's pretty clear where he stands on this pipeline, and it's now with the people of this district.
So for my last question, I would like to know how your campaign plans to get this word out and make sure that as many people in this district know who you are, what you stand for, and why they should vote for you.
Great question, Nina. We have a saying in our campaign: democracy is not a noun. It is not that lever or that button that you press on November 8th. It is a verb. You have to get out and get active and be involved in your democracy. No one handed George Washington democracy. Nobody handed MLK democracy. Nobody handed Susan B. Anthony democracy. And we don't expect anybody to hand us democracy. We had to fight for it, and we have to bring it back. We need people to be on the ground with us, knocking on doors. Can't knock on doors? You can make some phone calls. You could go to our website right there. Click volunteer, click phone bank, and you can get the information right there. It's not going to be easy. But I promise you that if we work hard, we could definitely win this. And in fact, Paul Ticker, New Jersey, just 2 weeks ago, considered us one of the top 6 races to watch. And by no means, thank you. And by no means is this a traditional type campaign. And I have to tell you, someone from the establishment approached me and asked me, or said to me early on, and this was when we had a primary challenge, and they said to me, you know, you should bow out and support the party. And I said, sorry for the inconvenience, but this is the political revolution. So please do not take this lightheartedly. Talk to your friends and family. Get the word out. We're doing this old school, and it's going to work. You know, people like to measure campaigns by the amount of dollars. They're forgetting the grassroots. We have one of the strongest, if not the strongest, grassroots campaign in the history of the 7th District. I've had so many Dem chairs tell me, wow, this operation right here is amazing. And I have my team to thank for that, so let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nina.
Yes. So, just shall we open to questions, folks? So let's see. I know you were so eager, and since it's your world we're working for, you get to ask the first question. You know what? Do we have that mic to walk around? Fantastic. This young man.
So are we having cheese testings every week?
We'll talk about it.
I could ensure we have a congressional resolution specifically to ensure that.
Linda. Wait for the mic, please. Thank you.
Can you tell us what your win number is and what your base you consider your base to be, and who are the demographics that you feel you need to work hardest to win over to win this election?
We have 503,000 voters in this district. 6 months ago, at the end of January, little over 6 months ago, at the end of January, we had 115,000 registered Democrats in this district. We had 142,000 Republicans, 145 Republicans. As of this month, we have 136,000 registered Democrats and just 142,000 Republicans, which says a lot. And for the first time in a long time, Somerset County, which is the largest voting bloc in our district, has more registered Democrats than they do have Republicans.
All right.
Let's do it here too, folks. Let's do it here too.
Over here.
Hi, Peter. I knew you virtually, and this is the first time I'm meeting you in person. My name is Gio. I probably have a question that you might not have the answer for, but it's something that has concerned me. I actually am a communications manager for the geoscience department, and the metric of 20 feet by 2050 is a very deep concern for me, because that's the reality. And this week, as we watched what happened in Baton Rouge, it's a little disturbing that the government there is actually telling the people that they can rebuild. And that's kind of unnerving to me. So as a coastal state, it's a very concern for all of us here. Could you give me some idea of what plans you have for addressing coastal, depletion and the rate of sea level rise? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Climate change, that is the issue. You know, the sea levels are rising as a result of the fact that CO2 goes into the air, warms up our waters, melts away our ice caps, and the cycle just continues. We are almost at that point of no return, and it is scary. And this is the time to take it seriously, and we need the right leaders in Washington to address it. Development is a concern. We need to protect our coastal areas. We need to put we need the proper laws in place when it comes to development in those areas to protect people's land, water, as well as overdevelopment in those certain areas. What's happened in Baton Rouge, and I'm so upset that the mainstream media has completely neglected this issue. You barely see it. We have to be careful with regards to development and construction in these areas, but we need to ensure that people have spaces in which are habitable. This Katrina happened barely 10 years ago or so, and we're now seeing it again. Similarly, in Somerset County, the big major issue was flooding. We had a major issue in Greenbrook, ongoing in Boundbrook, Bridgewater, and other places. We need to bring the proper investment to address these issues. One thing the current congressman here has not been able to do well is to bring that investment. He has, in the last omnibus investment spending bill that was passed, he had opposed it. That would have brought money into areas so the Army Corps of Engineers could address the issues of flooding and development throughout the state. So I hope, we could work with local partners, especially not just Assembly or State Senate folks, but also people who are academics who understand these issues to inform us. So it's not just under the control of those who are in real estate with just the intention to develop, to make the most bang for their buck.
I'd like to add to that statement, actually, Peter, because one of the things that Jonathan and I have been able to prove here since 2010 is that most of our pastures, 183 acres of this farm, are up that hill. And from the 1940s moving forward, increasing numbers of acres of those upland acres were placed into high-intensity corn and soy production, which created erosion and flooding right here. We moved in 2010 to 125 acres of corn stubble. And we planted grass. And we had Hurricane Irene, and this road was closed with up to 4 inches of water right across this road, and we learned from the locals that that's what always happened whenever it rained. We are now 6 years in, and it has been 4 years since we have had flooding on this road because our uphill acreage is now in permanent pasture. This is a real solution to a real problem. And with folks like Peter in Congress getting things done in a vision that puts people before politics, I don't know how we're going to turn it around completely, but I am optimistic that we're going to make some progress in that direction.
Thank you, Nina.
Joe. Wait, let's get the mic.
Thanks. I'd like to ask a follow-up question on Citizens United. One of the dichotomies of Citizens United is that the ruling affects both the very large corporation, like a Comcast or a Time Warner, which controls the flow of information through cable and through media, and also smaller actors like unions or non-governmental advocacy groups like Planned Parenthood. So how do we shut down the large corporations but still allow the smaller advocacy groups like Planned Parenthood and JN unions, which speak for people, to not be affected by an amendment that would overturn Citizens United?
Thank you for that question, Joey. I'm all across the plain, no matter if you're a for-profit giant company or if you're a union. The interesting thing and the difference, I think, between the two is that when a corporation does it, a for-profit corporation does it, they do it as they please. Whereas a union, which it represents the people, they need a majority vote to determine which candidate and who they will fund. But across the board, I do not support in any way, shape, or form super PACs, period. I think that's something we need to get rid of. I think everybody ends up playing the game because, well, they're doing it, so I'm going to do it too. And that's really the concern. But I think we need to ensure that the voices of each and every single entity is heard. And of course, there is a place for business as well. There is a place for Wall Street to have the discussion. There's a place for the clean energy. There's a place for the AFL-CIO at our table. I think a major thing would be to ensure that we make sure that either people lobby or they donate. And often lobbyists, they bundle a whole bunch of money. They're the ones making the donations. And that is where the corruption continues and ensues.
Actually, hi, I'm Nina's other half. I would like to speak a little bit to that. Back in the 70s, before college, I was a community organizer for the United Farm Workers in New Jersey, actually. And thank you. It's a long time. And now I'm a farmer, and I pay my people. In any case, back then we had a lot of support from the unions, but the support that we got from them wasn't so much donations. It was manpower. They showed up at our picket lines. They brought food to the house where we were all living. I was living in a house in East Orange with 20 young farm workers, and we had about $20 a week for a food budget. And the machinists union would bring us dinner one night a week, and the communications workers brought us dinner another. So there's other ways for unions to support political change without needing Citizens United. Okay, there's plenty of ways. They can educate their members. They can urge their members to turn out and vote. They can urge their members to make donations. Okay, so I don't think the unions really need Citizens United as much as the fat cats do. So let's get rid of it.
Thank you so much. And to add to that, unlike a certain Republican incumbent in this district, I support collective bargaining 100%. We need to ensure that our unions, whether in the public and private sector, they are respected. We need to ensure that people's pensions are protected in this nation. What we've gone is from a nation that focused on labor to a nation that's just focusing on financial capital. People have emotions, thoughts, feelings, and they are able to live out their lives. Corporations have just one basic interest, and that is profit at any cost. We need to start focusing on the triple bottom line, the socio-economic and political impacts of each and every single thing that we do. And the way we do that is to invest in our labor once more.
Thanks. Peter, Joey and I happened to be in Provincetown, Massachusetts on Cape Cod in June, the day of the Orlando gun massacre of the mostly gay nightclub called the Pulse nightclub. And we happened to be in Provincetown, which is I think the only gay majority city in all of America, or if not one of just a few. Within about an hour, there was a rally organized on Commercial Street of about 2,000 people. They take what happened in Orlando very seriously. So we happened to be in Provincetown just this past week for their biggest event of the year, which is Carnival. And the biggest float in Carnival was by a group called Gays Against Guns. And I wanted you to know that this is the flyer that they gave out, and your opponent's name is on it. And what it says is unwanted. It's a wanted poster. Unwanted. NRA puppets up for re-election in 2016. And the names for New Jersey are Leonard Lance and Frank Lobiondo. And I don't expect you to address the 2nd Congressional District, but I know you've talked a little bit about the difference between yourself and Congressman Lance on guns. But if you want to elaborate, I'd really like to hear it.
Yes, will do. Thank you. Without a doubt, we need common sense gun laws in this country. How many more mass shootings do we need to hear about? How many more accidental child firearm deaths? And as a social worker who worked in mental health, I cannot hear one more instance where someone dies of a suicide death due to a firearm that was just easily accessible for them. One thing we definitely need to do is have instant universal background checks. That system needs to be updated. We need to do that. It could be done, period. I was a big fan of the assault weapons ban. And someone who I would not likely name, Ronald Reagan, was also a big fan of the assault weapons ban. You know, you do not need, and going with that, high capacity magazines. You do not need rounds of that to protect your family or to go hunting with. There's no function for that. I understand, hey, you have fun, go out to the gun range, shoot a few rounds, fine. I don't understand it completely, but I'm cool with that. But not in our communities, not in our streets. We don't need that. Yes, he did. And we need to ultimately, just one more thing, the major thing here that I want to add is the weapons manufacturing industry that goes into the military industrial complex and so on. I think a major thing in this country, especially in the state of New Jersey, where we have pretty good gun laws, and thank goodness we haven't had a major mass shooting event, and I hope we don't have one ever again anywhere. But I've talked to a lot of people who about this issue, and they say, I want a gun to feel safe. I want a gun to feel safe. And it sounds like a reasonable thing. Well, why do you want to feel safe? Well, why don't you feel safe? Oh, there's a lot of crime and all that stuff is going out there. Okay. So how do we... Yes. Yeah, exactly. So how can we reduce that? How can we make people less safe? If we look to certain examples, if we look at a world in which people had education, people had access to quality education. If we look at a world where people had health care, if we look at a world where people could do to those things, would probably have a good job that pays well. And therefore, they got a beautiful home, a family, food on the table. That would automatically reduce crime. That would automatically reduce the need for a gun. That would automatically, perhaps even, instill in the sense of people that we could respect our women and our girls within our community so they don't have to feel unsafe. That goes for many men too. So I believe if we could address this, and this is an idea we're building called the Commonwealth, ensuring that we have a commons of wealth, and we could do that. We could afford to do that. The wealthiest country in the history of the world could give people health care, good quality jobs, education. And I believe by doing that, we could assuage the need for having a firearm to feel safe throughout our communities. There was a gentleman back there.
Yeah, Bob White, Milford Borough Common Council. One of the big concerns that we have in Hunterdon County is it's beginning to age. When you take a look at the millennials, and I've got one up in Boston, I just drove back from Vermont, dropping one off at college, so my apologies for getting here late. What they're saying they're looking for is they're looking for something more approaching an urban style living, because that gives them what they're looking for. They want something to do in the evening, they want public transportation, they want high-speed internet, they want jobs. So exactly what you're talking about. They want jobs. They're leaving Hunterdon County because we don't have the jobs. What are your plans going forward if you're elected?
Thank you for the question, Bob. Great question, and that is what we plan to do. That is, earlier I was saying that a lot of people are leaving to go out to the cities for this very reason alone. I was having a conversation with John, and he was like, there used to be an Indian restaurant in this area, but now it's gone. And to me, it's like this is the highest concentration of Indians in all North America are right here in New Jersey. For one, yeah, let's hear it for the Indian American community. For one, with that fact, it's a shame we do not have an Indian American congressman yet, but we're getting there. Yes, we're working on it. But we need to ensure that we have access to the beautiful things that is the world, that is the state of New Jersey. They call us the melting pot in this nation. But so many people out here feel like they are detached from that. New York City, it's not too far away, but it is not that easy for someone out here versus someone in city folk out in Union County to be able to access the city. We need to invest in high-speed rail. We need to do that. Many nations are defeating us. There's a lot of safety issues. There's the fact that, the platforms that are constructed do not go in line with the trains. I think the furthest a train line comes out here is Highbridge. Maybe also Hackettstown in Warren County. We need high-speed rail. That's how we put people to work. We need to ensure that there's more investment and opportunities right here at home. Rutgers has a great agricultural program. My sister, believe it or not, she took after my grandparents. She's a farmer, and she's seeking these opportunities. So, we need to invest. We need to go after these models, not the big agriculture models that have been the status quo for several years now. We need to have Jersey Fresh actually mean Jersey Fresh, meaning that it can't be Vermont Fresh or Virginia Fresh. Jersey means Jersey. We need to buy local. And I believe we could do all these things with the proper leadership we will have in Washington, D.C. after November 8th.
Hi there. Hi. My name's Rachel, and I'm just 17 years old, and I'm here because although I can't vote yet, I care a lot about our state, our country, and everything in between. And so I'm just wondering, do you have a plan for giving people like me more of a say and more opportunities that can't vote yet?
That question deserves a round of applause. I can, people consider me a young person. I'm 30 years old. I'm finally kind of feeling old now. I happen to be the same age that Kennedy was, JFK was, when he became a congressman. So Thank you. One thing that they fought for back in the 70s during Vietnam is you could be shipped off to war, but you couldn't vote. And they actually passed a constitutional amendment, and it happened like this. Within months, they changed the laws. I'm a fan of actually bringing down the voting age, whether that's 16 or 17. We have young people these days. They're so much better informed than I was, and we're only 13 years apart. It's perhaps the access to the internet, access to information, the ability to differentiate. So I think, for one thing, we could bring down the voting age. I think that's one thing, but you guys got to fight for it. I'll be an ally. And also making sure that you guys talk about politics. We live in a society where if you ask anybody, who do you want to be when you grow up? Their first response is a baseball star or a basketball star or an athlete. We need to invest in education so people begin valuing education. There are countries in the world, if you ask a kid, who do you want to be when you grow up, they'll say Bill Gates or Warren Buffett. Because not only are these people successful, they had great ideas. I think what we have fallen behind on is somebody doesn't know their congressman, but they know who Kim Kardashian is, right? I don't know if you're clapping for Kim Kardashian or... So we need to ensure that people are invested. We need to make it more accessible. Look, it's the 21st century, creating apps, letting them know. In fact, ensuring, we could go into voting with regards to having voting done online, registering to vote online. We need to make it cool and to get involved in the political process, because what we're fighting for is not for my parents. They've seen more yesterdays than we've seen tomorrows. So we need to ensure that our generation, we're the generation that created the Black Lives Matter movement. We're the generation that created Occupy Wall Street. We are the generation that's going to be combating climate change and putting an end to fracking. So it is very important that we work together and just do democracy, get the word out. Yeah.
Does one have to be of voting age in order to volunteer for your campaign?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked, Nina.
No.
You could go to our website, you could get involved. Many of our volunteers, and we have over 300 of them. Get out, get involved. My campaign manager, Josh, is here. And we have a ton of interns back there, and a ton of interns who are working in the field in some capacity right now who couldn't make it today, but they're on the phones. They're working on Facebook, working on content and things like that. You could get out, get involved. This is the way to do it, and I will write you a letter of recommendation.
I need that.
Hi, Peter.
Hello.
I am the head of the Alexandria Citizens Against the Pipeline, and I want to thank you because we saw you this past week at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission non-hearings that we had.
Yes, give a round of applause. Yes.
For you. Our current non-representation was very obviously missing from that event and all the events that have going on up and down Hunterdon County. I know that you do know, and we're very glad that you know, we're working still to even get some of our neighbors and the neighboring townships to understand how unbelievably dangerous this is going to be for property values, for water, for so many things that we depend on.
The timing of this, and I'm going to ask you an unfair question because you're not going to know yet, but the timing of this is that this stuff is going to kind of hit, I'll say it this way, right after you take your oath of office.
Yes.
Because FERC is supposed to make a decision between January and March, and I think we all know what that decision is going to be. And it's going to be what we do after they go ahead and approve this that is going to hopefully help New Jersey to stop it. So, you know, banning fracking and getting this whole process to change is awesome and desperately needs to be done. But I also have to selfishly say, do you have any thoughts about, as soon as you take that oath of office, what we can do at that moment immediately to stop the Penn-East project?
Excellent question. Thank you. This is democracy in an action in and of itself. And just to point out, Congressman Lance, you know, he was equivocal, well, we should think about another route, you know, while at the same time, not just taking money, but supporting legislation that makes it easier to build pipelines, fast-tracking the process, as well as building pipelines on public lands. So all your rhetoric is empty anyway. We all know that. And he took credit at the end for the delay that we, the community, fought for, and now it's conveniently after the election. Oh, go figure. Politics, right? I can't emphasize enough how much we need to continue the fight by just being together. We need more voices. We need more people to learn about it. We need to band together. In the way the civil rights movement, in the same way the women's suffrage movement. Our challenge of the 21st century is very much these things, but especially the environmental challenge. I'll be out on the streets with you, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I got a couple of days, couple of months before I take that oath, but I'll be out fighting side by side. I don't know how many towns exactly passed resolutions banning the pipeline.
Every one of them.
Everyone. Okay. So we got that accomplished. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. So.
I was very touched with your question, and the reason I stand here, I was his father. Okay. We talk about this Penn State pipeline. I asked the same question to him. What are you going to do? This is the most important issue in your district. Well, we come from a country called India, and we have a leader called Mahatma Gandhi. How he win? That's what he's going to do. He's going for a hunger strike. He's going to Penn State, and he going to sit over there, and believe me, until this age, my wife and me, we feel Peter all his life, but we don't care. For the district, he will do it. Trust me.
You know, I just want to say that would be a pretty tough primary opponent next time we're on.
You could hold me to that one. It's on tape.
I just want Peter to know that I'll gladly step in for the hunger strike. It will last much longer that way. Will probably likely more effective. It will take years for them.
So that, yeah, I mean, the fact that this conversation started, that was the path I was going down. We have to practice civil disobedience to ensure this doesn't happen in our own backyards, in our own communities. For goodness sake, this is the congressman's own town, backyard that we even met in. So that, as things get more drastic, we will have to take more drastic measures. And the people, as long as we stand together, will never be defeated.
Well, as Peter knows, I'm more of a speech maker than a question asker, but one man did stand in front of a tank in Tiananmen Square, so it can be done. And referring back to this young lady here, tell your friends to utilize social media for more than just, you know, snarky comments and, yeah, pictures of what you had for dinner. I've seen a lot of eggs in the past 10 years for some reason. But apply pressure from the bottom up. You know, Franklin Delano Roosevelt stated, "Make me do it." And that's how you can be more active. Get with your friends and make them do it. You know, if all of us get to our friends and tell them that we will not vote for any candidate who is endorsing Donald Trump, period, and make that the word that's out there, that this megalomaniacal fascist man will not be president, let every one of your friends know it. Send them a letter. Write an editorial letter. Ask them to send it to their friends. Make it spiderweb out and put Peter Jacobs' name for Congress on the top of the head mask. That's how you get it out. trying to use social media, vote for Peter Jacob, and that's our responsibility. All of us have to write letters to our friends. People don't want to talk politics, then they don't want to learn.
As the mic moves to this lovely lady in the turquoise shirt, I do want to add that I think that one of the best ways to get people to listen is to recommend what you would like them to do. Try to avoid saying don't do this, because when the word no comes in a sentence, the ears close very quickly. So in everyday life, and certainly in this political climate, it's very important for us to point out the benefits, the good things that you want to draw people towards. If they're not listening, eventually clunk them over the head with the word no. But I think it's better to keep the ears open with a positive action that they can do.
Hi, Peter. Quick question. Are there going to be any debates scheduled, and hopefully some in Somerset and Hunterdon County, where Lance has a strong presence in history here?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we're going to be contacting his campaign. And we do plan some debates. Historically, they've had a debate annually for the past several cycles at the Gateway Chamber of Commerce. But we also want to have a debate that's open to the public. So people are welcome to come, perhaps at a community college or a center, that if you know someone at, that is something we are planning in the future as we get closer after Labor Day, as things get cool and people are excited about the election, we'll be planning that. Yep.
I think in the past there was one at Raritan Valley Community College with Linda Stender and so forth.
Okay.
So, that's a great venue.
Yes.
Convenient.
We'll do. As long as all you come out and bring 5 friends with you.